Got to get over the hump, Chico. It is hump day.
Boom.
Y'all know what that means. It's Big Wednesday. Y'all know we do on Big Wednesdays. We have big guests. We're going to get it on and popping. Of course, we have the athletic director, Lovo, joining us. It is the morning run.
Hold up. Say it again. Who we have?
The athletic director of Colorado.
It's going down in a
major way.
It's the biggest and the baddest. It's the morning run, TMR live. Uncle Neely BiggDogg Chico coming to you straight from the middle of the ocean in the middle of America. Shout out to Jackson, Mississippi, checking in. What's up? What's shaking? How you doing this morning? Afternoon?
Man, potato chips or bacon. That's what's shaking. Well, Chico, what I love, I love when you shout out the middle of the ocean. You do it in a patois Jamaican accent, and I'd be like, I didn't know they talk like that in the Pacific Ocean.
That's my pigeon. It's called pigeon out here. Patois over there, pigeon over here. You know what I mean?
Okay, pigeon. You use a pigeon.
A bird.
Yeah, you was definitely there.
As a bird.
Chico.
Yeah.
Spring ball is officially behind us in Colorado. The NBA playoffs are officially set. WNBA draft behind us. There's a lot of stuff to get into, but I can't wait to get into is athletic director Fernando Lovo is going to be with us today, man. But let's look back at spring ball real quick before he joins us at about 10 after the hour. When you look at those 15 practices culminating in that spring game, Chico, what are some of your in a major way takeaways?
In a major way takeaways. I like
in
that.
A major way.
Might need to be a segment right there. In a major way, takeaways or whatever from the spring game on the spot. In a major way, we got some playmakers. In a major way, wide receivers, and we're not even talking about the ones that were hurt for the spring, that were out during the spring game. Just talk about the ones that actually played. We have some playmakers on the outside and in the slot in a major way at the receiver position. In a major way, you got some DBs that can make a play. From the corners to the safeties, you got guys coming down hitting hard in the backfield. Shout out to Jaja Board, young guys like Mojo Williams and young Creed making plays out there. Creed Thomas making plays. So in a major way, we got some playmakers on this team, I feel. And also you go to the coordinators. We got some dog coordinators, and I mean that in a major way. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Might need to make a few tweaks or changes to the person to the players on the roster, which I think will happen. But for the most part, you have your team, and I think you're happy with that at each position. And I think you leave this spring with your heads held high, knowing that you didn't show everything during the spring, and you have guys coming off injuries that's going to make a major impact to this team also.
Man, Chico, I love when you give me something I can debate and argue with you. So I don't love it right now because you didn't give me nothing that I could debate or argue or disagree. Not one thing, Chico. I love every bit of what you just said. Sign my name to all of it. I'm going to try not to be repetitive or duplicative. Get that big word out. But I love what you said about the coordinators. I think you got two aggressive coordinators who neither one probably had their full arsenal of weaponry, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. So if you like what you saw offensively, just think when everybody is back and best I can tell, those injured receivers will all be back for fall camp. They'll be back somewhere between strength and conditioning in the start of August camp. So you'll go into Georgia Tech, at least at full armament. And I love what I saw, Chico, just from like the diversification of the offense. You saw two tight end sets. You saw two running back sets. You saw backs lining up in the slot, backs lining up in the backfield. I love the speed and the body change in Trackhawk. I think he's gotten more muscular, but also even faster. So I love what the running backs are going to bring to the table, and including Coach Neal's tight ends were involved as best they could be from a vanilla presentation, of a spring game. But I would say, Chico, for me, in a major way, is definitely those two coaching hires in Marion and Marv.
Yes, indeed, in a major way. And let's get to Unc. Well, first of all, They said Colorado was too small, Unc. They said it was too little, Unc.
I saw somebody, Chico, go through the data points, if you will,
That's right.
and really do a deep dive on the average height, size, and weight, and that kind of thing. And it did present a narrative that, okay, Colorado is a quote unquote smaller team.
Mm-hmm.
But that's without you looking at the positions. You're looking at the aggregate result, the total result, instead of looking at the position. When you look at some of our receivers who, hey, I will take it. You're the number one receiver coming out of the state of Texas. I don't care what your height and size is, what your weight and
Mm-hmm.
size is. But when you look at where it matters in the trenches, them ain't little dudes.
Oh, dog. And we told you guys, we gave you a rundown of the roster right there. And you
Hmm.
shout out to Darius Sanders and Reach the People Media. You saw the guys responding to that. Guys like Big Bo Hewley, like, man, I'm 6'7", 315. What are y'all talking about? You know,
Yeah,
you're making an assumption off of seeing the first specialist run out on the field during the spring game. And now
yeah.
it's
The guys who's supposed to be small.
exactly. So, well,
I don't. I
I
don't
don't
get it, Chico.
yeah, man. It's always going to be something around Coach Prime and his program for whatever reason. That's just how it goes. You know what I mean? But we got a big guest. How about that?
You want me to tee it up, Chico?
Tee it up, Unc. Do like you
I'm
do,
gonna
man. Do your Unc.
tee it up like a little golf ball there, man. Like
That's right.
y'all got to get ready for this because joining us this morning, what I like to call a rising power player in collegiate athletics, man. The athletic director for the Colorado Buffaloes, Fernando Lovo, is with us today. Chico, you talk about powerhouse programs, blue blood programs. He's been at Texas, been at Ohio State, been at the NFL, Jacksonville Jaguars. Most recently, the athletic director of New Mexico, where get this, Chico, they
Mm.
won 8 conference championships in one year and set
Beastly.
records academically and financially. He's now stepping into the role of one of the most high-profile AD jobs in the nation at Colorado. When you factor in NIL, Coach Prime, and just the eyeballs of the world on the program. We have our new athletic director, Fernando Lovo, with us today on the morning run. Give them applause, give them claps up.
What's going on, fellas? Chico, appreciate you letting me join the program today.
Oh, we
Hey,
appreciate
we we appreciate
honor.
you and your time, brother. How you making it?
Oh, I'm making it. I just got out of a great meeting with my team. We're looking at ways to improve things that we do day in and day out, and just blessed to be a Buff every day, man. I wake up, I get in my car, I drive towards those beautiful Flatirons, and I show up here and just count my blessings. God's so good to me and my family, and we're so blessed to be here. So I appreciate you letting me be on this morning.
Hey man, appreciate you joining us, Chico. Take it away.
Hey, first of all, I want to say once again, thank you. Appreciate it. We like to get to know, our guests, and you are one of the ones that I just want to tee it up, as Uncle Neely was saying, just let you speak on your background and yourself. So let everybody know who didn't read your bio on the website. Let everybody know who Fernando Lovo is.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I moved to Miami, Florida when I was 5 years old. So grew up in South Florida. Was an athlete growing up. Played sports. A bad athlete, I should say. Wasn't very talented, but I enjoyed sports, and it was always part of my life. And so I knew that was going to be something that was going to be central to what I did in my life. And so I had the good fortune of going to school at the University of Florida. I was a broke college student, as most of us are when we get to school, and I needed a job, and I knew that I wanted to work in athletics. So I got my first job as a student equipment manager for the football team. I was washing towels, folding jerseys, staying late, doing the thankless things, but what it gave me was a couple of things. One, it gave me the opportunity to be part of a program there at the University of Florida that was just an amazing program. Urban Meyer was the coach there. We had some incredible coaches on staff. We won 2 national championships during our time there, and just was around some amazing players, the Tim Tebows, the Pounceys, the Percy Harvins, you go through the list, right? It was some of the best teams, I think, in college football history. And so was there and just working, doing the thankless job. And then, as most things in life, God interjected in my life and put someone in my life at the right time, and that was Urban Meyer. He saw something in me, and he gave me an opportunity to move over into football operations. And that was where my journey really started. I got into football operations there at the University of Florida. And then he left and took a year off and got the job at Ohio State, which coincidentally was when I was finishing up my master's there at Florida. And so right when I graduated is when he got the job at Ohio State, and he took me there with him in a full-time role. And again, had amazing success there. We won our first 24 games at Ohio State. We were 24-0 and lost 2 in a row. And then that last year that I was there, we won the national championship there at Ohio State. So just really fortunate to have the opportunity there, and then went to the University of Houston. My first kind of lead role, I was chief of staff there for 2 years, and then went to the University of Texas after that in a similar role as chief of staff there. And then spent a year in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban got the job there. He brought me with him and was really helpful for my journey and career there. And then I always knew I wanted to be an athletic director. I knew that was my calling, that was my passion. And so Chris Delcani, the great athletic director at the University of Texas, brought me back to Texas in an administrative role. And I was there for 4 years, got the job at the University of New Mexico, was there for a short time, and then got the call about this great job. And I sprinted here. This is an amazing place with amazing coaches and amazing opportunity. And so just really fortunate and blessed that my life has taken me here, and I don't take anything for granted. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that.
Yes, sir. AD, you talked about that national championship at Ohio State, which I imagine, it's got to be the top of the mountain. But before we get deeper into the show, I want to explore something with you that, in my mind, had to be one of those valleys, one of those lows. Chico, as you know, there's a lot of times I have an opportunity to be a fly on the wall, to be in the room when Coach Prime is having some of the most pivotal conversations and meetings. And I say this, AD, not as a journalist or football analyst or a talk show, but just a father to father, man to man. I happened to be with you when the discussion about the passing of Don Ponder happened. And I just wanted to give you some public flowers because I didn't see an AD in that moment. I saw a dad. And the conversation that you and Coach Prime were having with the Ponder family, and as a program that shows a lot of things, we don't show everything. And I just wanted to pick your brain for a second on that moment, because we're just getting ready to start the spring camp and football season, calendar years getting underway, and having to deal with this moment. What was it like for you, not only as an AD but as a father, to have to navigate that situation?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Unc. And it's that's a phone call you never want to get. That was a really, really hard one to get on that day, and obviously really emotional. I didn't get to know Dom really that well at all because I just got here in January, but I heard enough about him even prior to that unfortunate call that really said everything I needed to know about who he was and what his family stood for. And one thing that made that moment easier, it's never easy, those are always really, really challenging situations, is the way Coach Prime handled it. And every chance that I get to say this, I do, because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. As good of a coach that Coach Prime is, he's an even better person. And everybody feels that in that building, and everybody knows, particularly the young men that go to battle for him every day, that he's got their back. And even in times of despair and tragedy, in a moment like that, his ability to articulate that God always has a plan and we have to trust the man upstairs, and really just do that at a level that he does, made my job a whole lot easier in a situation like that. And so for me as a father, I can't even imagine getting that phone call. And so we felt it was our obligation to do everything in our power to support the family. And for me as the athletic director, to not only support the family, but to support Coach Prime and his staff through that moment of tragedy. And I appreciate you saying what you said, because those situations are never easy. But I think Coach said it best, let's do this for Dom. What would Dom want us to do? And everybody knew in that room that Dom would want us to work and glorify him and the hard work that he put into this program. And I think we're trying our very best to do that in everything that we do. And just following Coach Prime's lead on that made a really, really difficult situation a little bit easier, because he's such a good man and a man of character that it really shone through in that moment of tragedy.
Yes, sir. I want to tell you this, in your role as AD and in our role, Chico and myself, being talking heads and being quote unquote influencers in this space. Since the toxicology report was released and having spoke to Don's parents, and they haven't backed away from anything and want the record to be doubled down on encouraging our young people to make good decisions. We offer to you on our platform that anything that we can do, throughout this collegiate athletic year and beyond, to help our young people make better decisions. We stand in your corner as an ally to help with that.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's the platform that we have, right? We have the reach, obviously, through folks like yourself and just our platform here at CU to be able to impact others in a positive manner. And again, in situations of tragedy and moments of despair, and there's always learning lessons through that. And so I appreciate you saying that. It's something we take seriously. I know I do, and our coaches do as well. And I think that's our obligation. I have a very parental way of looking at my job. I feel like these young men and women that are in our programs are our own, right? These parents, these guardians are giving them to us to protect them and to educate them and develop them. And Coach Prime talks about that all the time about, yeah, certainly we want to win and we want to have success, but when these young men leave these programs and programs like ours, are they better suited for life after sport? And I think we've done a really good job with that, but obviously we always have to find ways to improve that. So I appreciate what you said. That means a lot.
Well, I want to go into how you're going to go about that. I heard you speak about having more fan interaction, getting the students out there more. Now, I've also heard you talk about selling and the naming rights of all of your assets and venues and things of that nature. What do you think is more important moving forward in this NIL space and college football? The fan and the student support, or the corporate type support from the sponsors and things of that nature? Or do they kind of marry together?
Yeah, they definitely marry together because I think for us to be competing at the level that we expect to compete at, we need all of that to come together, right? And we need that momentum. And so, ironically enough, I was just coming from a meeting where we were talking about student engagement and how do we improve that? What can we do to make sure that our students, we want to create a sense of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. We want people to say, gosh, I can't miss that. I gotta be there. But that just doesn't happen. And so we are going to be very, very, very intentional about how we attack our students and our student engagement. I think some of the things that we've done here in the past are really good, and I'm going to be able to take some ideas and bring some ideas from other places that have been. And so we need that student section rocking. When that thing is full and they stay throughout the game, that has a tangible impact on winning and losing. And that's my job as administrator. Coach Prime does a great job preparing the team, for battle, but I've got to help with that. I've got to make sure that we're creating an engaging environment for our fans, our students, everyone, so that we don't have these lulls right throughout the game, that we're dynamic in how we script our game and we keep that environment high and that excitement high, because that helps us win games. And that's been proven. And then when you talk about our premium assets, naming our stadium, putting logos on the field, patches on our jerseys, that is so important. And we have such a big opportunity for us to be able to enhance our brand in that way. And we're actively in a lot of conversations with great partners about what that would look like. And we're going to strike now. We're going to strike while the iron's hot, right? I'm new. We've got Coach Prime here that's got a great platform. Everyone wants to be part of that because of who he is and the platform that he has. And so we're really leveraging that. And I'm excited with the opportunities that we have ahead of ourselves. We're going to be really aggressive in that space. And I think we're going to see success there here in short order. So this is a new day of college athletics. Revenue is king, cash is king, and we need it, right? But we also need that support. We need people showing up, being loud, being engaged, understanding what it means to be a fan, how to engage at certain moments of the game. Because when all of those things come together, the ceiling is so high here for CU, and that's what drew me here. This is a great place with a ton of opportunity ahead.
Man, Chico, you talk about teeing it up. He teed up what I had in mind perfectly about what drew him there. A lot of times, man, people shy away from quote unquote filling the shoes of a legend that was in front of them. And when you had Rick George and all the years he's put in and the success he's had, and you try to balance that between, okay, how do I keep that going, but also bring what I'm bringing to the table? What was that thought process like to pursue and get this job? And how do you navigate that space of, all right, I'm following this legendary guy, but I got to do it my way too?
I thought it was one of the things that throughout the process that spoke to me the most was the fact that I would be walking into a situation that was a well-established situation because of what Rick George did for this institution. I mean, folks, talk about his 13 years of service here as the athletic director, but what sometimes folks forget is he was here during the glory years of football, during the national championship season, and Coach Mack and all of that, and that sort of perspective is really important. I thank Rick for who he is as a person. He's treated me wonderfully since I've been here, for his perspective that he has on this place because of his time here when it was at the very top. He knows what it looks like and what it takes. And then him as a professional, I say this, he's a titan of the industry. He's someone that I've respected over the years as my journey has taken me to the chair, and someone that I've admired in the work that he's done. So for me, to be able to have the opportunity to come follow in his footsteps, but also have him here to help guide me through some of those things, help me with relationships. I know, him and Coach Prime are really, really close, and that's so cool. I mean, that is so awesome to have him around to be able to help me bridge that gap and really develop some quick trust with Coach Prime, because obviously that's critically important. I think we've done that. For me, I'm reminded every day of what this job means. Rick had a lot of trophies in this office on these shelves behind me. And I know my background's blurred, but they're empty. So I got to go get some trophies. I got work I got to do because I got to uphold the standard of this place. And the standard is, they say it, the pride and tradition of the Colorado Buffaloes will be entrusted to the timid or the weak. And that speaks to me every day, because that's the standard. That's the standard that's been set long before I was here and will be here long after. And so I want to uphold that, and I'm going to do everything in my power to do so.
Yeah. So, yeah. Talk about the importance of tradition and upholding that tradition and things that you have in place or that you look to instill that will do exactly that.
Yeah, it's important here. Not every place has the tradition that CU does. I think we have the tradition. We know that we have the tradition from a competitive excellence standpoint. We've won a national championship. We have 2 Heisman trophies. We have multiple conference championship. I mean, those things, that puts us in an elite level, right, of what it means from a collegiate athletics program. But then you talk about the tradition outside of the field, right? You've got Ralphie, right? You've got the fight song. You've got these flat irons. You've got the great setting that makes this place the total package. And so I say this often, we have to respect tradition. We have to here. It is an obligation on our part to do so. And I know that we've done that, and we're going to continue to do so because that is our obligation. However, to survive and thrive in this new age of college athletics, we have to not think traditionally. Respect tradition, but don't think traditionally. We have to innovate. We have to create. We have to look at things under a different lens. And for us to be able to have that foundation of such good tradition here really gives us the opportunity to not think traditionally and really enhance our brand. And so really important to me. I know it is to our coaches that we always do that. And that's one of the things that spoke to me the most about this job was that tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Lovo, when you talk about that tradition, right, and also being on the forefront of being innovative, it appears to me one of the challenges is that every time we get a rule, the rule then changes. We've gone from transfer portal changes to collective changes to NIL changes, and who knows what's next. How challenging is it in this new space for an AD, to stay ahead of that curve and create the wave versus trying to catch up to it with innovation?
Yeah, very challenging. I think all of us as administrators are trying to understand what exactly rules we're playing under, right? I think there's guardrails that were established by the House settlement that I think all of us as administrators were encouraged about when we signed up for this settlement, because we felt it would provide some stability in the system. But to this point right now, we haven't seen that. And there's a number of different reasons why that hasn't happened, but we're not going to use that as a crux or an excuse. We understand that we've got to continue to push and push and push, and we're going to do that. And so it is a challenge. Things are changing by the minute. And I do hope and I'm a bit optimistic with some of the recent things that have been said out there, that we're at the point now where we're going to get some sort of, whether it be federal intervention, or we're going to agree to this participation agreement that the CSC created, so that we can have some sort of enforcement around these things. Because I can tell you right now, if we continue down this pathway of this spending that we see right now, it's just not sustainable. It isn't. And look, football is critically important to the overall success of our athletic department. We need football to be successful. We need it to be successful for a number of reasons. And so my commitment is, we're going to push and fund football at the level it needs to be successful. But we also have a whole other athletic department that we've got to tend to and make sure that we're providing the resources to be successful. Because I think here at CU, we can be good at a lot of things. I think we can be good at a lot of our sports, but we've got to make sure that we're investing in the right level. And part of that is giving football what they need, adapting to what changes in the environment, and then hopefully having some sort of guardrails that come in place that are enforceable, because what's going on right now just isn't sustainable.
Love that.
Man, they talking about the eligibility time and everything. There's a whole bunch of things going on. So
no doubt.
If you don't mind, what do you think about that? Is there a cap should be on there, or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the 5 years to play 5. I think that would create some stability in terms of, you see all these eligibility lawsuits and everything else about guys wanting to get their JUCO years back, and there's been so much noise in the system when it comes to that. And so I think something like that would provide, again, we're just looking for stability and clarity. I think we are as administrators, but coaches are as well. Coaches are tired of some of this stuff too, because you're looking at building a roster. How do you keep those folks around? How do you have some sort of continuity? And with the lack of clarity around eligibility and years of that you can play versus your years of enrollment, there's a lot of noise in the system. So I'm hopeful that as part of this next iteration of it, that we have some clarity in terms of what is truly your clock, your eligibility clock, and how do we calculate that. So hopefully we're getting close to something like that.
Yeah, Uncle was trying to get a year back.
Hey, come on up. Let's go.
Hey, AD Lovo, let me tell you this. One, I never lie to you, so I got to tell you the truth. I do have eligibility left. I just don't have ability left. So if I can give you 2 years, but what you gonna get out of that, I have no idea.
I don't know about that. I'm sure you still got it. You probably got that mean streak in there that you could let us take over, and
it's got to be a very specific situation. 72 degrees at home, about 7:30 p.m., 3rd and 16, and we got to check all those boxes.
All right, we can make it work.
And as you line up, they throw a flag, and then you come off the field, and then that's the play.
And that would be perfect.
I love it.
You talked about again, these challenges and now eligibility there. I want to flip over to the financial side of it, because I get it, Coach. On one hand, money doesn't matter. You got to put in the work, and you got to go out there and compete, and you got to win ball games. But on the other hand, when you look at what's happening in the NIL and the fundraising space and et cetera, the challenge to an AD to now have to raise even more money than before. Like, how do we start bridging that gap and turning up the fundraising notch and letting people understand that what you talked about for a competitive football program, it takes financing.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest responsibilities as an athletic director right now in this new world is to be a good educator. We have to educate our donor base and our supporters as to what it looks like right now and what we need to be competitive and successful. And look, not every donor or supporter is going to want to engage into the NIL world. There's some that just doesn't speak to them, and that's okay too, no problem. But we have to be educators, because I think when we educate our fan base here and our donor base, at least in my short time since I've been here, there's a real desire to want to help. Everybody wants to win. Every Buff fan wants to win, because the pride and the esprit de corps that comes along with having a successful football program and athletic department. I mean, when we're winning and you wear this around town, it feels a whole lot better when you're winning.
Oh, yeah.
You got your diploma hanging up in your office, and when you're winning and you come in for a meeting, oh, you're a CU, hey, things are going on great down there. So everybody wants that. but educating them on what it takes, that's key, and that's my responsibility. And since I've been here, I think we've been able to do that early on. We've seen some success. We've seen some really high level philanthropic engagement. And I want to give Coach Prime credit. Obviously, folks like him. They want to invest in him and his program because they've seen the impact that he's had in his short time here with the success, obviously, and other things. And so I'm really encouraged about that. And I think every chance that I get to be an educator and teach them about what this new world of college athletics looks like, I take it, because 9 times out of 10, folks get it, they understand, and they say, all right, now tell me, how can I help? And that's my job, and that's something I take very seriously.
Yeah. National championships don't come easy, and you were a part of several there, Ohio State, Florida. Talk about how that experience can help you as AD right now at Colorado.
No question. Some of the most transformative times of my life, being part of those national championship teams. And, I'll never forget a coach said on one of those teams, they don't put championship ring on smooth hands, right? And I never forgot that, because it takes work. It takes grit. Right. It takes, the grind, to do it. That hasn't changed, with all the NIL and all of that stuff. I get that. I understand that. That's a new dynamic. But they still don't put championship rings on smooth hands. You got to put the work in. You got to do it. And that starts with me and our administration. I want to be the hardest working, most dedicated administrative staff in the country, because I still think that gives us a competitive edge, because I saw it. I saw it work when we won those championships. Yeah, we had talented teams, but we outworked people, right? We had a work ethic that was unmatched, and we had a really, really, really good culture. I think those teams, more than any that I was part of, were coach-fed, player-led, meaning that the coach was able to talk about the culture, was able to talk about what they wanted to see, but then the players took it and made it their own, and they led each other. They held each other to a high standard. They held each other accountable. And that's the same vision I have as the athletic director. My executive team are my assistant coaches, and my job is to coach them and give them the tools that they succeed so that they can go thrive and excel in what they do. And then give them the credit when they have success, and then take the blame if something doesn't go right. Because I think that builds the culture that precedes a high level success. And so I learned a lot from those years. And I sat back as a young equipment manager or a young operations guy on national championship teams, just taking copious notes of what it meant to build a culture, right? To develop trust amongst your team. And I try to implement that to our coaches because it was so impactful to me, but certainly every day to my staff, so that we can be the best servant leaders of our coaches and our student athletes that we can be.
Yeah. And coming from the equipment background, a little bit different from a lot of other ADs who might come from actually playing a sport or whatever. You coming with a different mindset, a perspective, and to make a change financially, business wise, and culture wise around all programs. Talk about that background of being an equipment manager and learning certain things and nuances from that position to get into where you are right now.
Yeah, I think it was hugely helpful for me, and for a lot of reasons. I have a lot of respect. Josh Brooks, the athletic director at the University of Georgia, who I have a ton of respect for, was a former equipment manager. I know Mark Harlan at Utah was as well. And so, it is a unique path. There's not a lot of us out there, but I do think it teaches us a lot of lessons that, serve us well in our roles. I once had a coach that said, and I never forget this, that they thought the best administrators either had their hand in the dirt or a whistle around their neck, right? Somebody that understood the day in and day out kind of intricacies of what it takes to run a program. And although I didn't have my hand in the dirt because I was just shot threes behind the 3-point line or a whistle around my neck per se, I was in the trenches, right? I was in the room with those coaches. I was in the foxhole with them. And so it gave me perspective that I think is really useful for me in my conversations with our coaches, because I feel like I have a good understanding of what it takes to be successful and how successful culture matters to a team. And so I attribute that to my time as an equipment manager. And I think it's really helped me, understand what's the right way to lead as a servant leader, right? We were doing thankless jobs. We very rarely got noticed. The only time you got noticed if something was going wrong. And I still take that mindset, right? We shouldn't be noticed. We don't need the credit. We're here to serve. We're here to serve our coaches and student athletes. And that's the mindset that I bring, and I attribute a lot of that to my time as an equipment manager.
I love that, Coach. Love that. Absolutely. I want to talk to you about the physical nature, the infrastructure, the buildings and grounds.
Yep.
We could start. We could start with Folsom. I like to call one side Uncle Neely and the other side Chico. There's a little drop off there.
Yeah.
So when you look at the side with the suites and the names up in lights,
Yeah.
and then the other side, needing some attention. What's your immediate or long term plans for any stadium upgrades or any building and ground footprint work?
Yeah, I think one of the things I did this weekend as I walked around with Jason DePape, who's our incredible senior deputy AD, and he oversees all of our facilities and capital projects. And so I got a really good look as to where I think we're really where we have good things to offer and other areas that need improvement. And you mentioned it, the west side of Folsom Field has a ton of opportunity there. It's the best seats in the house, and that's the side that is nearest to the Flatirons, the original side of the stadium. It's got great views. It's close to the field. There's so much opportunity for premium inventory there that I think we could really sell to our fan base. And so it's a high priority for me to do something to the west side of our stadium because not just for the fan experience piece, but I do think there's real revenue opportunity over there with things that we could sell and things that we could offer to our fans. And so I don't quite necessarily have a timeline yet because I'm still trying to figure out exactly where we are in terms of a financial, in the out year picture and making sure that we're providing resources to our teams where they need them. But there's no doubt that we need to make improvements to the west side of the stadium. And that's something that'll be a priority for me as we continue to evaluate next steps from a capital improvement standpoint. But we're just replacing the video board in the end zone. And I think if you were here this weekend for the spring game, that's I saw they were putting up some of the panels this morning. So, I look at capital projects like the Golden Gate Bridge. It's as soon as you get done painting it, you got to go back and start again, right? Because you always got to be doing something. And so for us, I always like to show progress, that we're doing things, right, that we're never settling. And so we're going to do that. It's just going to take a little bit of time for us to figure out what's the appropriate next step.
And Coach, let me ask you this, because I see you in the building. You dropped by practice. You're in the cafeteria, but you're not in the way. How do you navigate? I want to be present but not be a bother. I want to monitor but not micromanage. I want people to know my door is open kind of vibe, because you seem to have that philosophy as you walk around the Champion Center.
Yeah, 100%. I've never been a micromanager. I think that's something that is a demotivator to those that are on your staff. I think it's my job to empower folks with the tools necessary to be successful. Not to get too philosophical, but I think there are two core beliefs that every great leader believes in. One is that there's greatness in everyone, that every time I interact with someone, the thing that I think of is that there is something extraordinary inside that person. And two, that it's my job as the leader to do the work necessary and to put people in positions to leverage their skills to bring that greatness out of them. And so in that mindset, I take a really top-down approach. I say, okay, I'm going to put you in this position. I'm going to give you the staffing that you need. Now go do your job and let me be your biggest cheerleader. And by the way, if something happens that goes awry, let me take the blame because that's my job, right? And I think that's how you develop trust, because all of that is about trust, what you said. You don't need to micromanage if people trust you and you trust them. And so I try to be really intentional early on in my time here about being visible, being present, coming to practices, traveling with our ski team, with our women's basketball team, going to be around them, pouring into those student athletes so that they know, okay, I think I can trust this guy. And this guy has my best interest in mind. And so it's really important for me. Obviously, it's challenging just with schedule and time and all of that. But my door is always open, and I try to be real about that. I'm meeting with all of our staff one-on-one. It's going to take me some time to get through everybody. But I think that's really important, especially early in a tenure, to develop trust, to understand what people do, and to figure out how do you put them in the best positions to be successful.
Yeah. You made a couple of moves, in the administrative office and on your team. Can you talk about some of the additions you've brought along with you?
Yeah, definitely. So we have, since I've been here, I've hired two individuals that are going to be on my executive team. A gentleman by the name of Casey Byers, who was our oversaw all of our external at the University of New Mexico. I've followed him for many years. Obviously, he worked for me in New Mexico, but he oversaw all of the creative and social strategy at the University of Washington for their football team for many years. He won, I think, 2 Emmy Awards for documentaries that he produced when Michael Penix was there and Roma Dunze, and when they had those great teams. And so really, really creative, innovative storyteller, great person, someone that I think will get along great with Bucky and everything, everybody else, all the folks that make our platform and our brand so powerful. I think he's going to seamlessly integrate into that. And then Derek Steinbach will be my new head of development and fundraising. Super successful fundraiser at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Highly sought after individual that had a bunch of opportunities to go other places, but chose to stay there until he chose to come here. And it speaks to what this place is about. Everybody sees the opportunity and potential here. And so that's really exciting for me as I'm looking to build out my staff. I'll continue to do that. We've got a couple of other positions that we're working through, but the intent is to bring good people in here with no egos and make sure that we're here to serve our coaches and student athletes.
Coach, one of the tough parts about your job is there comes a time for people have to move on for whatever reasons. And as athletic director, you're overseeing all the sports, and there's more to winning than just the final score on the scoreboard. But in that vein, as you manage your coaches and your staffs, what do you look for in your individual coaches, kind of 30,000-foot level, regardless of sport, to let you know things are headed in the right direction?
Yeah, great question. A lot of layers there. I think first and foremost, before I put a standard or hold someone accountable to a standard, particularly a coach, I always ask myself, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough to support the program, to support this coach? Do we have the infrastructure in place to be successful? To me, your expectations have to match your resources. And if they don't, and those are incongruent, it's really hard to ensure that you can evaluate, the trajectory of a program. So I always ask myself that question. And then from there, I'm really, really big on the student part of the student athlete. And so, is there a healthy culture within the team that, students are graduating, the performance in the classroom is excelling, are they good representatives in our community? Do they give back? Do folks think positively when they think of a program, when our donors and supporters think of a program? I think that's really important. The other thing too is, I always look at, evaluation and production in terms of who you're recruiting, right? Are you bringing individuals in? Are they productive? And now there's a valuation piece to this because we're paying these players, right? So do we have the infrastructure in place to ensure that our evaluations are matching our valuations and that we're seeing the outcomes that we want to see as part of it? And so, I'm very open with our coaches. We meet every year at the end of the season, and we have a pretty strategic and formatted way of how we do evaluations. But more than evaluating them, I want them to give me feedback of how I can support them in a manner to be successful. So it's a very iterative process, and it's one that'll continue to improve the longer that I'm here, because I'll get to develop deeper relationships with these coaches. But it's something that I take very seriously, and we do quite often.
Do our evaluations match our valuations? I got to get that on a t-shirt, a coffee mug, a bumper sticker.
Yeah, that's the new age. Back in the day, you would just sit and watch film and evaluate a player and say, if you're looking for a certain profile on, in your secondary or your skill positions or offensive line, can they bend? Can they get in a good football position? Do they have good hand placement? If the answer is yes, 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 all right, let's offer them a scholarship and let's go. But now you have to place a value on those evaluations, and that's the new age. And we've got to make sure that we've got the right processes in place to do so.
All right. Coach, we got a couple of fan questions. Want to hop on and get to you. C Maven AI with the $21 super. Appreciate that. Coach Prime loves that number 21. Culture is an overused word in sports and business. So in measurable terms, what is culture to you? How do you break it down into standards, behaviors, incentives, and daily repetition that shape real outcomes at CU? Appreciate that, C Maven.
Yeah, I appreciate that, C Maven. Culture is a term that's used often, but to me, when I break it down, I think of culture as what leads when no one's watching. When we when we have, when we leave here, right, we put our heads on the pillow at night, do we feel good about the direction that we're headed in? Are we making the right decisions? Are we operating with integrity? Are we keeping our student athletes at the forefront, of all of our decisions? So for me, when I think of our culture as the athletic director here, that's what I think about, is do we have the processes and things in place so that when no one's watching, we're making the right decisions and we're doing it in a manner that's commensurate with our core values as an athletic department. I also think trust is a really big thing when you look at culture. And I think you can't develop a good culture if you don't have high levels of trust. Every good relationship, every good marriage, you go through it, right? The foundation of that, the bedrock of that is trust. And to me, it's three things. It's character, competency, and connection. Character, do you do what you say you're going to do? And do you do it often, right? Connection. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right? And then competency. Are you making people better? I go back to what I said about leadership and what I think the role of a leader is, and that is to bring greatness out of people. And when you do that for others and they can feel that in themselves, that's when you develop that trust. So if you can get that foundation of trust developed within your organization, then the culture follows that, right? And the last thing I'll say is it's this flywheel when you look at culture. It's that the leaders of the organization create the culture. The culture of that organization then drives the behavior. And then ultimately the behavior is what produces the results, right? So when you look at it through that process, that's how I look at it as the leader. How do we go about it to make sure that when we get to the results part, that all of the other preceding things are all in order? And it's a daily thing. It's like shaving, if I let it get scruffy, it doesn't look right. So you got to work on it every single day. And that's something that I take to heart.
Yes. Coach, what would success look like for you at CU in 2 to 5 years?
Yeah. Well, I think, for me, first and foremost, I always lead with, are we still keeping the student athlete piece at the forefront? Are our graduation success rates still, close to 90%? Is our academic profile still such that we are outperforming the regular student body for 8 consecutive semesters like we've done? Are we continuing to do that? Are we graduating our student athletes and preparing them for life after sport to where they have job opportunities waiting for them to be ready to go out in the real world? Those things matter deeply to me. And so I always evaluate success there. Let me start there, ensuring that we're still doing that. Obviously, competitively, one of the biggest benchmarks and metrics for success is the Learfield Directors Cup. And what that is, for those that don't know, it evaluates all of the success of your programs, and you get ranked in that manner. When I was at Texas, I was really fortunate to be, we won 3 straight Learfield Directors Cups. And that indicated that we had the best athletic department in the country because we were successful across all of our sports. That's what I want here at CU. I want us to be highly, highly competitive when it comes into the Learfield Directors Cup. And for us, that means we're going to have success across all our sports. And so I want to see measured and marketable improvement there, because it means that we're doing our job as administrators in terms of giving our coaches what they need to be successful. And then from there, we can see the meaningful progress. And so I'll work hard to that, because I think there's clear benchmarks and metrics that we can see that. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to over the next 2 to 5 years.
I love that all sports narrative there, because that's where I want to go to you next, Coach. When you look at, of course, football being the economic driver, it's the bell cow. It produces the lion's share of the revenue. And you have some non-revenue generating sports. And I'm my first 2 children were girls, so I'm a big proponent of Title IX and everything that we do there. But sometimes there comes a time where maybe you have to add something in, like a baseball, or take something out. When you look at the lay of the land, what kind of opportunities do you see there, whether it's addition via subtraction or just addition to our sports catalog?
Yeah, where my mind is right now, and I do want to give a shout out to Coach Prime. I love the fact that, he was supporting, he supports our track programs. He was at our women's basketball game sitting courtside. Like that's so important. That matters so much, and he gets it. He understands that. And that helps me do my job. That helps me when you have that sort of buy-in and support. Everybody understands that football, as you mentioned, drives the revenue. Everyone gets that. That doesn't need to be explained, right? But when you have that support and that engagement from your head coach and his staff and the student athletes showing up and supporting our other sports, I can't tell you how impactful that is. So, I do appreciate that. But, for me, where I'm looking at addition right now is I want to be additive to what we currently have. I think we need to invest at a higher level in some of those sports to be more competitive. When you look at our cross country program, like we have, I go and I clear my mind. I do a walk around an indoor track, and next time you're in there, go over there and look at all the national champions that we have and the Olympians, if you haven't already. I mean, it's spectacular. Like we need to get back to that level. So how can I invest in that program to do it? Similarly with, volleyball or soccer. I mean, we've had success, but how do we take it to the next level? And so the way that I'm thinking about it is, if we have what we have right now, how do I continue to push that forward and invest at a level that is going to help us win championships? And that's where my mind is at right now. And I think, everybody would get on board with that, and everybody has, because we want to see success across all of our department. And, that's really important to me and something that I'm going to focus on.
One more follow-up to that, AD, is that, we talk about a lot of the changes taking place in collegiate athletics and what's being pushed and incentivized. One of the new pushes is investment in Olympic sports. And I know we got Colorado as a state, Olympic Village is there, and a lot of that training takes place. What is your mindset on that?
Yeah, I'm all in. We live in Colorado. We, as you mentioned, we have, that's synonymous with who we are. Is the Olympics and our Olympic sports. In fact, I can share. I had a call with the U.S. OPC last week about this very topic: is how do we continue to pour in and advance our Olympic sports and our women's sports? Because we are college athletics is the biggest feeder system to our Olympic team here in the U.S. And we have an immense obligation for that. And so I'm all in when it comes to our Olympic sports. I've got a young daughter and a young son, and I want them to grow up and be able to have a bunch of opportunities out there to go play sports, and some of them may be Olympic sports. And so it's really personal to me, because I want to see them grow up and have the opportunity to go compete in those sports, and if God leads them there. And so I am absolutely all in. And I think that's our obligation here in Colorado because of the connection that we have. And I'm going to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to continue to enhance those programs.
You may have just opened up slightly a window of opportunity for me, because I got a little flag football left.
Oh, hey, that's a great point. Flag football is really, really, really growing. I think you've seen, it's awesome. And what's even better about this is that the NFL's started to get involved, and they've really shared that they're interested in kind of developing that pipeline. And I think women's flag football is exploding across the scene. And the Big 12 came out and they said they're looking to be first movers in terms of what flag football might mean for the conference. And so I agree with you. It's a really popular sport. It is here in Colorado. We have a good club team here that I've had conversations, exchanged some emails with their leadership. And so, we're never going to close any doors, but I think for us right now, we've got to focus on pouring into the sports that we have right now, because I think when we do that, we're going to see some incredible success, and we're going to make all of Buff Nation really proud.
Absolutely.
All right, not to hold you too much longer, but let's just say, everybody out there listening, go ahead, put your city, your state, your country in the chat right now. Let AD Lovo know where you guys are checking in from. Also, Unc, I wanted to ask a question probably at the end. You go ahead, Unc.
Oh no, I was going to let him off the hook here, because we've had him on for almost an hour. So you get your last one in, and then we'll let him go.
You know what? I'm just going to ask about the spring game. How about that? What was your thoughts overall on the spring game? And then, this was my last question, actually. I was going to get you to kind of talk about, your perspective, your thoughts on Colorado from a media standpoint, looking in before you came here. When you're seeing all of the platforms like the Pregame Network reach the people well off, the creative team at CU, talk about how you know, what were your thoughts on that from seeing it from afar, first of all, and then your thoughts on the spring game?
Yeah. So I always thought just from afar that this was, in my opinion, kind of the gold standard in terms of promoting your brand and everything that's going on. I think the access that our fans have through our different channels and streams and whatever else, I think really provides us with a unique ability to tell our story and market our program. Because at the end of the day, we're all storytellers, right? We have to tell our story well so that people buy in and engage and want to, you know, support us. And so, you know, I think I want to make sure that I'm finding ways to enhance that. You know, and Casey, who's coming in, he'll be on my executive staff. He's got a very creative mindset. He's a storyteller, Emmy Award winning, you know, producer. And so I think he's going to fit really well into the fabric that we already have and just continue to take us to levels that we haven't seen before. And so I'm really excited about all that we currently have and all that we're working towards. So I love it. I think it's really, really, really special. As far as the spring game, look, I went to I try to go as many spring practices as possible so I could really see, you know, I heard you say when I got on, it was pretty vanilla on side, on offense and defense. And I understand that. And I would expect that, but I can tell you, I was very encouraged with what I saw during spring practice in the spring game. I think, you know, when you look at our team, I think we've got great talent at the skill positions. We had some injuries at wide receiver, obviously, that happened, but we're fast, we're twitchy, you know, and that go-go offense it's going to cause fits for people to defend. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, that's never straightforward what's going on. I mean, you're running inside zone with a triple option. You got an RPO coming off. You've got tempo. You've got, you know, there's things that keep you off your heel, keep you on your heels. And so I think for me, I'm really excited with what I've seen, and I think we've got a lot of talent in terms of in our skill and our, you know, we're talented on that side. And then on the defensive side, I've known Coach Marv actually for some time. We had some mutual connections, and I've always admired him and the way he's gone about it. He's an incredible person, and he's got great energy. And, you know, I think he can get the most out of these young men that he's coaching. And, you know, I think our defense is physical. I think they're fast. You know, they arrive with attitude, like Coach Marv says. You know, they get there, and you feel them when they get there. And so, you know, I'm really encouraged by what I saw. Obviously, you know, we're going to get tested early, and I think that's a good thing. You know, we've got, you know, 3 out of our first 4 are on the road, and I think for us, you know, we're going to have that in the foxhole mentality, and we're going to strap it up, and coach is going to get them juiced up, and we're going to have great plan, great schemes, and I'm excited to watch us play in the fall. And so, you know, and I want to give a shout out to all the fans that showed up this year. And, you know, we tried something different this year. We made it free. And a lot of folks that I talked to when I was there, they were at Folsom for the first time, you know, and that's really cool. And getting some new folks to come to the game. And I want to give a shout out to Coach and his staff for being so open and doing autographs after the game and really engaging our community. We did some youth flag football games. You know, we did, you know, a coaches summit, a high school coaches summit on Friday. So overall, really good weekend, really excited about seeing the fellas, you know, work out in the summer and strap it up. And it'll be here before you know it. We'll be in Atlanta on Thursday night. Buff Nation will show up strong, and let's go get a win on the road.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, give you some shout outs of who's been checking you out: Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, Orlando, Florida, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, Waco, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago again, just really coast to coast, Central California, all the way to New York has been tuned in today.
Bahamas.
Yeah, Bahamas is in, New Orleans, your hometown, is in. So
I love
shout
it.
out to everybody nationwide who's been. Toronto is in the building, including
Toronto.
Denver as well. If you
Pago
had one
Pago
parting
American
message,
Samoa.
yeah, Pago. If you had one parting message, Eddie Lovo, to the crowd gathered today, Ohio just checked in, what would it be?
Yeah, is my party message would be this: is just believe and trust in the process. We got great things that are going on here. We've got coaches that are committed to doing the right things for the young men and women in their locker rooms, but committed to winning at a high level. And we've got to evolve and adapt. And what we did, you know, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago isn't what works today. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to continue to be innovative and do things differently, and we'll do that. And just know, whether you're a Buff fan or just a listener of this show or anybody that's checking in, we're here to serve you. We want to make sure that we're creating an incredible experience for you when you come to support us here at our venues, and I take that very seriously. And so it's an immense sense of pride for me to have this position, and I'm not going to stop until I make all of Buff Nation proud. And I appreciate all the support that they give us.
Absolutely. And coach, let me give you this parting shot from one good looking guy to another. If this AD stuff
I
doesn't
didn't
work
say
out,
anything.
you can always model.
Oh, I don't know about that. I appreciate that, but I'm gonna have to check with my wife. Might have a different thought on that, so I'll have to run that by her.
Hey, we appreciate your time, brother. The door is always open, man. Thank you for coming on today.
Appreciate y'all. God bless. Go Buffs.
God bless.
Thank
Go
you.
Buffs.
All right.
Go Buffs.
Fernando
Hey, man.
Lovo, athletic director, Colorado University, CU in the building, University of Colorado, I should say, in the building. Hey, man, what a great talk, Chico. What a
Yes,
great
sir.
dude.
With the blesser. Shouts out to AD Lovo, man. Cold-blooded. Exactly what I guess I can say I expected because of just reading his background, seeing how he came in, his thoughts, his goals, and things of that nature. I think this is where if any university is watching, they're like, we need to get a guy like that. If we don't have one already,
Yeah.
we need to get a guy like that because we got to have somebody that's going to usher us into this new era of college football that we're already in, dog. So they have to have someone that knows how to navigate that and how to bring in that revenue. And you see him talk about the patches on the jerseys, the naming of the stadium. You see the Ford on the indoor practice facility now. All of those things are revenue generating ventures, should I say, that he's bringing about because you have to come with a different mindset. And he's coming with a track record, different mindset, and I love it. You know, I love
Yeah,
it.
I think Chico. In addition to that, for me, we live in a world where brands matter. Brands tell you something about that organization, about that product, just when you hear the name. And I always say this, even about Coach Prime. When you hear Dallas Cowboys, when you hear San Francisco 49ers, when you hear New York Yankees, there's certain things that come to mind. And if he had stopped at all those places, and if he just picked up one or two things, his time with the general managers and the owners and the coaches,
Yeah.
what a better coach in person it makes him professionally. And when you look at the same script for AD Lovo, he's been when you've been to Florida, when you've been to Texas, and you're from the South, and you've been to Ohio State. If you just picked up two or three things along the way and bring those things to Colorado, who's trying to climb up that, no pun intended, mountain to get where those programs have been, I just think the arrow is pointing absolutely up and success is on your side because you're being led by a person who has been there and knows where he's going.
Been there, done that. Didn't Dr. Dre say that a while ago? Yes, indeed. From Florida to Ohio State, and you saw with the Jacksonville Jaguars, all came from trust and relationships, and that have to come from
Hmm.
doing your job first. Whether it's like you said, a thankless job, equipment managers, things of that nature, to just continue to be like the Jeffersons and move on up. And shout out to Urban Meyer for recognizing that in him, and that helped get him to where he is right now in a great place, right there with Coach Prime in Colorado, and everybody's getting busy and Boulder where it's colder. Yeah, I'm excited, dog. I'm excited, huh?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I appreciate
Yeah,
him taking the time out, man. We got to talking, and
make me wear
he
that
was
logo
very
proud
willing
flag.
and encouraged and excited about coming on. So glad he took that time out on this first Wednesday after spring ball concluded. Chico, on Friday on the morning run, we got legendary championship coach in Mississippi hoops, Luther Riley, coming on to talk about his book,
Riley,
8 championships but one mindset. Because Chico, you always on mindset,
that's right.
and he's gonna come on and talk about that championship mindset.
Hmm.
Man, love the chat today. The chat was engaged. Y'all were keeping it going in there. Great questions, great commentary. Y'all know what to do when the show ends. Hype it up.
Hype us up. Hype us up. Appreciate that, C Maven AI for the super chats, keeping us going. Thank y'all, Den Danny, Jasmine Neely, Goonsville Clothing in the building. Sylvia Green, thank you. And everybody else, man, y'all know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe, coming all the other good stuff. Make sure y'all go to the website, unclechico.myshopify.com, and go get you something. We got new merch on there and new merch dropping each and every week, should I say, online. Go there, get you some Speed Hustle hats, some Consistency Wins hats, some Uncadelic shirts, some Uso Toko gear representing that Polynesian pipeline at Boulder. So y'all know how
we got the
do
new
it, man.
Chico shirts that already come with the knot tied in the front dropping.
That's right. We got the all.
A lot of people can't tie that knot right, so Chico ties the knot for you before you ship them out.
It's in the mouth. If y'all go to the website, we also have little stickers, right? You know, Uncle Chico stickers, Consistency Win stickers, and y'all can also buy those stickers and use them like use them. If it's sticker right to the floor, part of your back.
Then I send it back to Chico, scratch and sniff. Woo! Hey, y'all make sure y'all hype this up, man. Fernando Lovo, AD Colorado. What a great interview. Love that chemistry between him and Coach Prime that's already developed. Shout out to all the CU aunties who were at the spring game and in the chat today. Shout out to Goldsville Clothing. Faced by Jazz with that Uncle Neely beard oil. You'll see that in the ticker. Got to always shout out Denise Smith Insurance.com, State Farm, 303-343-3515. She's been down with in a major way with Uncle Chico in the morning run forever. Boulder Broker as well. The deal continues. Hop on at the Boulder Broker. Let them know Uncle Neely sent you. They're going to knock 20% off of that stay. And don't forget, now that the NBA playoff brackets have officially been set, it's time to go to mybookie.ag. Use the code BIGGDOGG.
That's 4 G's.
Big Dog. And log on and do what you do, man. Do what you do.
Yes, sir. With the blesser. We appreciate y'all joining us once again. This has been another episode of TMR Live with the biggest and the baddest. That's Uncle Neely, Big Dog Chico Pleasy. We're going to get up and about this thing.
Who's the biggest and who's the baddest?
Hey, man, it can switch either way. You know what I mean? We like
switch.
It's interchangeable.
Interchangeable.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
You sound like Coach Lovo. He was talking about strapping on. I was like, "Ooh, pause."
This man here, dog.
Easy now.
I knew. Oh my! It was some things that he said. I was like, I'm gonna grab on.
Let him make it. One. First time on TMR. Let him make it. But I already made some notes over here now. Ooh.
All right, AD. The first time you was here, you said
he could get a pass now. But next time we're gonna hit the pause button now.
Y'all know what it is, man. Should I leave him with some clips or just get about it? I think we're just gonna get about it today. We got more things coming for y'all. Just stay tuned. Friday is going down the major way. Peace in the Middle East. Let's go. Who run it? We run